When I was filming B-roll for the video Ghost of Bangor's History of Hauntings, strange EVPs were captured. While standing next to the Bangor House, more EVPs were captured. While standing on church steps, based on what these spirits said, I concluded something very tragic happened to a female in this area. There is a location in Bangor, Maine known to be haunted by spirits from the past. The Bangor House. Built in 1834, the Bangor House opened as a palace hotel. This location had its share of tragedies, mysteries, and secrets. During the Prohibition days, secret tunnels and a brothel was part of this hotel's history. In her past, many notable people visited the Bangor House. Amelia Earhart, Betty Davis, Henry Fonda, President Ulysses Grant, and Teddy Roosevelt. The list of notable people who stayed at the Bangor House is quite long, but there are other guests who stay within the Bangor House to this day, ghosts from the past. One such ghost believed to wander the halls looking for justice for her unsolved murder, a chambermaid, Effie McDonald. In 1965, a co-worker found Effie McDonald laying dead in a room on the 3rd floor. Effie was raped and strangled to death by her own stockings. Police believed Effie was a victim of the Boston Strangler, but later determined this was a copycat murder. Does Effie wander the halls of the Bangor House looking for justice? Are other ghosts from the past still residing in the Bangor House? Whoa, I just heard that. Female disembodied voice. Our first investigation, we come to the Bangor House late Sunday night to do an EVP session outside the building. We chose Sunday night in hopes there would be little traffic. Unfortunately, this was not the case. Are you here? Can you tell us who murdered you? I would have thought a Sunday that wouldn't be so much traffic. Are you able to tell us who murdered you? What the hell? I would have swore I saw a freaking apparition walk by here. I saw what looked like a faint dark figure of a woman walking toward the window to the right side of me. The camera wasn't pointing in that direction, but when I panned the camera to the right, something was captured that looked like the same dark figure of the woman walking away from the window. To me, This looks like a shadow moving along the wall. I'm not saying 100% this is paranormal related, but I can't explain where this shadow came from. The ground floor is 3 to 4 feet lower than the sidewalk we're standing on. If car lights moved across Tara from a distance, Tara's shadow would have been much larger. And based on the fact we are standing 3 to 4 feet higher than the ground level, if this was Tara's shadow, her shadow would have been seen in this area right here. Also, you will hear me talking to Tara about this in a minute. She states she was not close to the window when I saw this or captured this on camera. But what I find really strange, the moment I saw this figure of a woman move, and I said something about it, an EVP was captured that makes me question the possibility this may have been paranormal related. What the hell? What the hell?
You saw something?
Yes. I thought you were walking right behind me up close, and the reflection hit the glass.
I heard this woman screaming over here. I was like, what the hell is that?
Hello? We moved to the side of the building. I'm going to accidentally call Effie Ellie. Amazingly, a spirit of a female will correct me on the name. Ellie. What? Effie.
I heard something.
Effie is her name. Effie.
Try it, yeah.
Effie McDonald, do you know who murdered you? Are you able to talk to us about it if you're here? Effie, do you have a name for us? Who killed you? Who killed you? Because of the large amount of traffic, we stop the EVP session and conduct a spirit box session. We find these spirits are willing to talk with us about Effie's murder. Effie McDonald, are you here? Does anybody know who murdered Effie McDonald in 1965? And if Effie, if you're here, can you tell us? What did you say? 'Cause I couldn't hear.
I don't know if it was I can't or I killed her.
Did you say you
I
killed
did.
her? Based on our pre-investigation, there is no doubt we encountered paranormal activity outside the Bangor House. Through the years, people claim the ghost of Effie wandered the halls inside the Bangor House looking for justice. These claims are now verified. I believe Effie, as well as other ghosts, want the living to know who killed Effie. At this time, the name Howard comes up. Months later, we were given a brief tour by a resident inside the building. Due to the fact this is private property, we didn't have permission to video record the interior. We were only allowed to take snapshots and use the digital audio recorder during this tour. Does Effie, as well as other spirits, wander the interior of the building? These are the snapshot and audio recordings from this walkthrough. Before I had the opportunity to turn on the digital recorder, we heard a clear disembodied voice of a female. Did you just say something? My name's Kent. This is my son Joshua. I know I just heard you say something. Can you repeat that, please? Okay, I'm walking in the chapel, and I'm now in the chapel. Effie? Hello? Effie, are you here? Did you hear that? Effie, are you here? Came from over here. Effie? Did you just say something? All right, we are now on the third floor, the floor where Effie was murdered. Effie? Effie, was that you? Effie? We have an opportunity to conduct the investigation inside an apartment close to where Effie's body was found. I'm here to investigate the murder of Effie McDonald, murdered on March 18th, 1965. Murdered on March 18th, 1965. Effie. Effie. I feel bad for you. I've read your story. I feel really bad for you. And if there's any other spirits that are here, and you know what happened to Effie, and you have information, I would... What? Joshua is going to hear a clear disembodied voice. Keep in mind, I just looked at the church across the street. We also heard disembodied voices in the chapel downstairs. You just heard something?
Yeah.
You just heard something?
Yeah.
Hello? Effie, are you here? Effie, are you here? Did you want to talk with us? Did you want to talk with us? What the hell? At this time, I find it strange during our pre-investigation, these spirits repeatedly brought up Howard as Effie's killer. Months have passed since the pre-investigation. Will these spirits confirm Howard is Effie's killer? We conduct a ghost box, spirit box, and a white noise sweep in hopes to get confirmation Howard is Effie's killer. Do any of you know who murdered Effie in 1965? Effie, who raped and strangled you? Howard killed Effie. Why are you outside? Do any of you know who murdered Effie McDonald? Effie? Effie, are you here? Effie, are you here? 1965. Is he dead today? Is he dead today? A lot of people want to know what happened to you. I want to tell your story. Okay. Yes. What? What? Help you? Who said that? Did you hear that? When a spirit asks for help, it's very rare they tell you exactly what they want. What? What? In this case, they told me exactly what they wanted from me. The investigation on a paranormal level has ended. I believe these spirits said everything needed to be said. At the request from a male spirit, investigate Effie, there are 2 steps I need to take in order to continue this investigation. Step 1, investigate the investigation from the paranormal level. And step 2, investigate the investigation on a historical level. On the paranormal level, we must carefully connect what information these spirits provided. Based on what was captured, there is no doubt the spirit of Effie is at the Bangor House. Her voice is distinctive and separates her from the other spirits. She let us know she was present, tells us who raped her and killed her. She gives us an indication why she won't move on. Effie.
Try it, yeah.
Months apart, the name Howard came up many times. I don't believe this is a coincidence. When different spirits give you the same name, this is confirmation. One of the EVPs captured, a male spirit says go to the church. I believe this spirit was talking about the church across the street from the Bangor House. While in front of the church recording, a male spirit said something vulgar. When I first heard this EVP captured, and what this spirit said, I wasn't sure what he was talking about. After listening to what was captured outside the Bangor House during the spirit box session, I knew this was the man who killed Effie. These two captures, one an EVP, another during the spirit box session, are the same male spirit. I believe this man wanders the same area as Effie. And these spirits definitely call him a jerk. There's also a possibility Howard was not alone when he raped and murdered Effie. There was a second person these spirits mentioned, a man by the name of Rod or Rodney. These spirits confirm Effie's killer is not alive today. He possibly drowned.
Is he dead today?
There is a good possibility Effie was not the only murder victim from Howard. This is what I learned so far from historical research. On March 18, 1965, chambermaid Effie McDonald reports to work on that Thursday morning. However, sometime after 12 p.m., employees couldn't find Effie. As they search looking for her, around 2:45 p.m. another hotel employee finds Effie in a room on the third floor. Clifton E. Sloan was assigned to investigate Effie's murder. After investigating dozens of suspects, he narrowed the list of suspects down to one man. This is a composite drawing of the suspect. However, the name of the suspect was never released to the public due to insufficient evidence. 56 years after the murder of Effie McDonald, the name of the suspect has not been released to the public. However, in 1976, Detective Sloan passes away. The investigation went cold. I set this investigation aside for a year. I needed time to think about this murder and the investigations that were conducted by authorities. There were some issues about the investigation that bothered me. I felt there were two possibilities why the name of the suspect was being withheld from the public. One, the killer was a well-known prominent figure in Bangor. Detective Sloan didn't want to bring charges on him unless he had concrete evidence. Or two, and I don't say this lightly, there was some kind of cover-up. No charges were ever filed on the killer, facts were kept from the public, and eventually the case would go cold and swept under the rug. Detective Sloan states he knew beyond a reasonable doubt who the killer was, but didn't have physical evidence to convict him in the court of law. There are two issues I have with this statement. Beyond any reasonable doubt is a legal term given to a jury instructing the jury the evidence will show the guilt of the defendant that goes beyond any reasonable doubt. If the evidence Sloan had was beyond any reasonable doubt, why were there no charges filed against the killer? Detective Sloan goes on to say, there's no physical evidence to convict him in a court of law. If this is the case, how would he know beyond any reasonable doubt who the killer was? It's not a detective's job to convict anyone in a court of law. Detectives gather the evidence in the case, present the evidence to the prosecuting attorney. The prosecutor makes the decision if there's enough evidence to bring a conviction beyond any reasonable doubt. 45 years after Effie's murder, around 2010, The Bangor Daily News does another story on Effie's murder. The article states, longtime Bangor Daily News photographer Jack Loftus took a photo of the investigators holding the nylon used to strangle Effie that ran in the paper after the killing and several times since. Loftus said he has only vague memories of the events of 45 years ago, but remembers Sloan and his conviction that he knew the killer. The investigation went on for years and years, he said. In this article, the Bangor police chief was also asked questions about the case. He was asked what type of evidence was collected and if Sloan's main suspect is dead. The police chief responded he could not answer the questions. Why? He said the case remains unsolved. Also, it is a case that, while technically a Bangor case, is still under the jurisdiction of the Attorney General's office. The Bangor Daily News then went to the Attorney General's office and asked about the case. The responses were, as far as we're concerned, the case remains open. Even though the case is open, the police department does not have an investigator assigned to the case, and the investigation is listed as dormant. While there is no statute of limitation on murder, with age the cases often fade from memory. In other words, the case is forgotten about. Outside of Effie's concern for her family, what they went through over her murder, there is another reason why Effie can't move on into peace. I can't help but wonder if Effie feels her life wasn't important enough, her murder was never solved, and forgotten about by those who have the ability to solve her murder. I personally don't believe Detective Sloan wanted to withhold information from the public related to Effie's murder. He knew exactly who the killer was. I believe the case was rejected by the county attorney, who was the prosecuting attorney, Howard Foley. He would have made the decision to prosecute the killer. I also believe Detective Sloan was instructed not to talk about the case or release information to the public, who the suspect was. As stated in the Bangor Daily News article, Detective Sloan knew the killer. Could this be the voice of Detective Sloan?
What? What?
Other facts related to this case. Detective Sloan stated the suspect was a guest at the Bangor House. Witnesses stated the room Effie was murdered in was unoccupied for 2 days. Most all hotels have a policy: once a guest vacates the room, immediately the room must be cleaned and ready for occupancy ASAP. No statements were made Effie was cleaning this room when she was murdered. For this reason, Effie wouldn't have the key to this room in her possession. So how did Effie end up in the room? Someone had a key to this room. My only conclusion, and this is a theory, someone who was well known in the community was occupying this room off the books. Something was going on in this room the killer didn't want anyone to know about. Effie, knowing the room was unoccupied, heard sounds coming from the room. She beat on the door to confront whoever was in the room. Howard and possibly one other person in the room, named Rod or Rodney, opened the door. Once Effie confronted them, she was forced into the room. I believe Effie started screaming. She was quickly attacked, beaten in the face multiple times to quiet her. Effie's face was so bludgeoned, family could not view her at the funeral home. She had to have a closed casket funeral. While laying unconscious from the beating, she was raped and strangled to death with her own nylons. I believe the killer tried to make this murder look like the Boston Strangler was in town. The killer or killers quickly exit the room and leave the hotel. Like I said, this is a theory, but it's a theory based on the available facts. And it's possible this was not the first or last murder committed by the killer. We may never know. There may be some wondering if I ever asked these spirits for the last name of Howard and possibly Rod. Yes, I did ask. And yes, I did get some answers. And I can tell you this right now. If it's who I think it is that murdered Effie, I can understand why Detective Sloan wouldn't release this information to the public unless he had solid proof to convict this person, because there would have been a firestorm that would have broke out. And I have one last thing to say to Howard. Hey, coward Howard, the one that bragged about Effie's murder. I got news for you. When time comes to an end and God yanks your ass out of your grave, you will be judged. So don't get all cocky and everything about what you did to Effie, because your day is coming. You may have got away with this in life, but there will be a day you will face a judge on it. Instead of going around in the afterlife following Effie around and bragging about her murder, you better fear what's getting ready to happen to you. You jerk.